the king who burned his enemies alive. Imagine a king whose kingdom followed only one law. If you ever went against him, you would be burned alive. Yes, this is no ordinary tale. This is the story of a ruler people once called the King of Fire. Time has erased his real name, but the flames of his cruelty are still felt in whispers across the world. They say he began as a brave prince. At first, the people admired him. On the battlefield, he defeated enemies, expanded his borders, and strengthened his empire. But power always changes a man, and power blinded him as well. The king had a peculiar obsession. After defeating his enemies, he burned them alive. At first, only captured soldiers were thrown into the flames. But then, it became his obsession. Pause. The crackling of fire grows louder. In the courtyard of his palace, a great furnace was built. Every day, someone was cast into it. At first, prisoners of war, then rebels, and eventually, even those who were guilty of nothing more than laughing too late at his command. It is said that silence in his court was more terrifying than death, because if you spoke, you risked offending him, and if you stayed silent, he believed you were plotting against him. Either way, the end was the same. Fire. Whisper. He burned them alive. The people began to pray to God, "O Lord, save us from this fire." But God's silence carried a darker meaning. One night, the king himself was thrown into the furnace. The people thought it was all over, that tyranny had finally turned to ashes, and peace had returned to the land. But peace did not last. On the gates of the palace, on the pillars of the marketplace, and on the walls of the fortress, strange marks began to appear. Burned handprints, as if someone had pressed fiery palms against the stone. Soft whisper, they say, every night, exactly at midnight. Flames would erupt on their own. No wood, no oil, no spark, and yet the fire roared to life. The people whispered, "The king's soul has returned. Now he wanders in search of revenge." One night, the palace guards heard a voice. "I am the king. Fire is my weapon." They thought someone was mocking them, but as they stepped closer, suddenly their torches died out. Darkness swallowed the courtyard, and in that darkness came the stench of burning flesh. By morning, the guards were gone. Only their armor and ashes remained. Deeper, slower voice. One by one, people began abandoning the city. The markets emptied. The palace was deserted. But the furnace, the same furnace in which the king had once burned, still blazed endlessly. No one knew where the fuel came from, but the fire never died. Some storytellers say, one night the burning spirit of the king appeared inside the kingdom's grandest temple. Flames danced across his face. His eyes glowed like burning coals, and he declared, "You burned me? Now I will burn all of you." From that day forward, the land turned barren, the fields burned, the rivers dried, and for centuries, people remembered that one king who did not just destroy his enemies, he destroyed his own kingdom with fire. Even today, they say, if you wander near that ancient furnace, a shadow rises in the smoke, the shadow of the king. And if you listen carefully, you will hear a faint voice. "I am coming back." Sometimes, power is not earned by sitting on a throne. Sometimes rulers force their people to kneel, not with loyalty, but with terror. And this is the story of such a king, who did not kill with sword or spear, but with fire. He was the most merciless ruler of his time. It is said mercy never touched his eyes. He did not merely kill his enemies. He burned them. burned them in flames that seemed to rise into the heavens. People lived in constant fear. One word against him, one question about his decisions, and they too would be dragged to the furnace. In the town square, outside the palace gates, a massive furnace blazed day and night. It was the eternal symbol of the king's cruelty. The people called him the King of Fire. One day, when dozens of prisoners were brought before him at the gates of the fortress, the king looked at them and said, "I will not bury you in silence. I want the world to see what fate awaits those who defy me." And then, one by one, he threw them into the furnace. The flames roared, the skies turned red, and the air shook with the sound of endless screams. Time passed. The fear of the Fire King spread deeper and deeper, but the fire of tyranny never burns forever. The ministers began plotting. The princes, living in fear of their father, slowly rose in rebellion. One night, within the walls of the palace itself, those very traitors, whom the king had once trusted, stormed into his chamber. He was captured, his throne was stripped away, and the judgment was declared that the same fire which had consumed thousands would now consume him. The next morning, in the palace courtyard, the furnace blazed hotter than ever. The entire kingdom gathered to witness. In their eyes shone not just fear, but vengeance. The king was bound and dragged toward the fire. He laughed. He even roared with laughter and said, "You cannot burn me." The King of Fire. Fire is my weapon. Fire is my companion. Fire is my power. But when the flames wrapped around his body, suddenly his laughter turned into screams. The entire fortress echoed with his cries. The king who once burned others alive was now at the mercy of the fire itself. But something strange happened. When the flames finally died, there were no ashes left of him. The people thought it was over, that the tyrant was gone. But they were wrong. That very night, the furnace roared to life again. No one had lit it, and yet it blazed. Some swore they saw it, the king's shadow standing inside the fire, laughing. His eyes glowed red, like burning coals. And they say, "Even today, if you dare to go near that ancient furnace, you will see a shadow rise in the smoke. And if you listen closely, a voice echoes, 'I am the king. Fire is my weapon, and I will return.'" Long ago, there was such a ruler. People called him the Emperor of Fire. His eyes always burned red, as though flames lived within them. He believed the sword was not enough to punish his enemies. The true punishment was to watch them burn alive and celebrate his power with their screams. In the palace courtyard, a great iron furnace was built. Whenever an enemy, a rebel, or a rival was captured, the king ordered them to be thrown into the flames. They say the screams were so terrible that villagers miles away could not sleep for days. But tyranny never lasts forever. One night, while the king reveled in celebration, the furnace suddenly roared to life on its own. A gust of wind swept through, and the flames rose so high they lit the entire palace. The throne stood empty, and from within the furnace, a new scream echoed. Some say it was the king's own. And to this day, if you wander near the ruins of that palace, you can still smell burning flesh in the air and hear the faint echoes of screams. Never forget, the fire you ignite for others may one day consume you. In the darkness of night, the walls of that ruined palace still glow red. People whisper that the color is not paint, but blood that has seeped into the stone for centuries. When village children misbehave, their elders warn them, "Be quiet, or the Fire King will come and cast you into his furnace." Many travelers have passed the ruins at night. Some tell of a shadow in the courtyard, a figure wearing a crown, a torch in his hand. The shadow walks slowly, but if you dare to step closer, it lets out a shriek and vanishes, leaving only the stench of burning flesh behind. Some tales go further. They say the king never truly died, that he became fire itself. And now, whenever someone commits cruelty, whenever someone tries to burn the innocent alive, the Fire King appears before them and whispers, "In the game of fire, it is your turn now." Sometimes on moonless nights, travelers claim that as soon as their horses step into the palace's shadow, the air grows hot, not cold like the night, but scorching, as though flames were licking at their ears. One traveler's story is told even today. He says when he neared the ruins, the sky suddenly turned crimson, as though the heavens themselves were burning. In the courtyard, a furnace blazed bright, and before it stood a figure, a shadow crowned in gold, his body wrapped entirely in fire, and his eyes, they glowed like embers from the heart of a volcano. The shadow spoke, "I am the king who burned others. Now I am fire itself, and every tyrant who walks this earth will one day meet me in my furnace." The traveler fainted in terror. When he awoke, the furnace, the shadow, everything was gone. But burn marks scarred his skin. Even today, villagers shudder when they see the scorched flesh of his hands, and the man repeats only one warning: "Do not play with fire, for the king still lives." The story continues. The elders say time has erased the king's true name. No one remembers the empire he ruled, but everyone remembers his title: the King of Fire. Blinded by power, he burned not only his enemies, but his own courtiers, soldiers, and even innocent farmers. There was no justice in his court, only the roar of flames. But one night, a fire rose within the palace itself. It spared no one, not even the king. Some say he died. Others believe the fire did not consume him. It transformed him. He became the fire. And that is why, even now, whenever someone commits cruelty in the dark of night, the palace windows blaze with light. And from within, a heavy voice resounds, "I have returned." In the darkness of night, a caravan passed near the ruins of the cursed palace. The leader warned his men, "This land is cursed. Pass quickly." But a young soldier laughed and said, "What harm can come from a dead king? Will his ashes rise and attack us?" The moment his words ended, the air filled with the smell of burning wood. Camels and horses reared in terror, and from the shattered palace windows, red flames burst forth. The soldier's lips began to tremble. Suddenly, he saw it. In the courtyard stood the crowned shadow. Flames licked across his entire body. The shadow spoke. "You mocked the fire. Did you think fire would let you live?" The caravan screamed in panic. Some ran, others fell to the ground, but the young soldier, his feet were frozen to the earth. The shadow advanced slowly toward him. With every step, the ground glowed hot. And as it neared, the soldier felt his body burning from within, as though his very bones were turning to embers. When the caravan returned at dawn, the soldier was gone. Only a charred suit of armor remained, still hot to the touch. From that day onward, no one dared cross that road again. But the story spread across the land. People whispered that this was no ordinary ghost. It was the Fire King himself, still hunting those who mocked the flames. They said, even in death, his soul found no peace. He wandered in search of any human who dared make light of fire or of cruelty. At night, from the ruined palace walls, screams could be heard, screams like dozens burning alive together. Sometimes, hands waved in the smoke. Other times, a crowned shadow peered from within the fire. The elders said only one thing: the king still burns, and he shares his fire with others. Some brave soldiers entered the ruins, hoping to uncover the truth. By morning, none returned. Only their swords lay scattered in the ashes, their blades glowing red like molten steel. No one ever discovered what became of them. Some whispered that they, too, had been claimed by the Fire King's army, forever imprisoned within the flames. Background fades until only the crackling of wood remains. The tale now reached its most horrifying turn. Centuries later, people believed the king was buried under heaps of ash. But one night, when a cruel landlord threw his peasants into a fiery pit, the wind shifted, the skies turned crimson, and once more, the ruined palace windows burst into flames. From the inferno, the crowned shadow emerged again. His eyes glowed like burning coals, and from his lips came only one sentence: fire never dies. Fire lives within you. At once, fire spread across the entire village. People ran, screamed, but those who glanced into a mirror saw a crown and blazing flames flickering upon their own faces. It was as though the Fire King had awakened inside each of them. That night, the village ceased to exist. Only ash remained, only scorched earth. And echoing in the distance, "I have returned." The story did not end there, because fire does not only burn, it rises again from its own ashes. When villagers dug into the blackened soil, they did not find bones. They found black stones, stones glowing faintly, as though freshly pulled from a furnace. Anyone who touched them burned their fingers black. One fearless warrior once tried to take the stones into the city. "These are the king's relics," he declared. "From them, we will build new walls." But the night those stones were built into the fortress walls, the city was consumed in flames, and in the fire, a crowned shadow appeared once more. Since then, people say, wherever cruelty spreads, wherever the innocent are burned or oppressed, those stones appear on their own, and slowly, the ground begins to glow. No one knows how this story will end, but every generation passes down one warning. Do not awaken the King of Fire, for he will make you part of his flames. This was the tale of the king, the ruler who cast others into fire, and in the end became a prisoner of fire himself.